So I got two things from DA Hunter that I wanted to kind of look at. This video comes from Cotton Star. I love his work. I'm sorry, I love his work. So I'm not gonna lie, I might be biased on some of his stuff. But he's gone and he's gotten this recording where DA Hunter is talking a little bit more about the investigation. So got a couple videos that I want to look at. Again, this is Cotton Star Manifesto, another small channel, about 2.4K subs. Please go like, share, and subscribe to some of his stuff as well. The name of this video is JonBenet, DA Alex Hunter, recording on the grand jury investigation. About 2 minutes long, so go say what's up.
It went on for months and months, 18 months. It was interrupted from time to time as we did things that the grand jury requested of us. This was a grand jury that under Colorado statutes had a lot of power, investigative powers, power to subpoena, power to do reports, power to do this, power to do that. I'm not going to talk about what they did or didn't do, other than to say they had tremendous powers. They looked at this case, very interesting case for everybody, but they looked at it inside. They looked at it in detail. They looked at it at a time when people were paying $50,000 for photographs and stealing autopsy pictures and stirring the pot. And these Boulder County citizens...
That didn't need to be said. When we're trying to deal with something like this, DA, I'm just going to say this, it's supremely important that we keep our feelings out of it. If we're really trying to solve this, we got to keep our feelings out of it, because, you trying to get somebody kicked off a case and we don't even know why, and you being messy about it. You being messy about it. And you giving information about this individual to another newspaper so that newspaper can report it and it can get back to his boss. And then you act like you don't know why he may have gotten called into the office to get terminated or kicked off the case. I mean, you're doing things that you clearly want to get this man kicked off the case. As he stated in the deposition, you're doing things that you clearly want to get this man kicked off the case, get him in trouble with his boss. How ethical is that? How ethical is that? Yo, I'm not going to lie. That's not ethical. That's unethical. The most unethical. That is not ethical at all. And it's weird that you did that. It's weird that you would be that kind of person that would go and just drop information to somebody, unless he did something really bad. I don't know, man. You do what you want. If he did something really bad, and yeah. But otherwise, I think it's highly unethical for you to go drop information to a newspaper for that to be published, especially if it was super sensitive information that you could have just said, hey, man, this is information I want to take to his superiors, and we need to have a serious conversation. Like, this guy needs to be off the case. Here are the facts, and he needs to get off the case. But that tells me something about DA Hunter. If you are willing to go to the lengths of not only going to his boss and saying, this guy needs to be off the case, I've made that known, but you're willing to go outside of the system, which is what you did, going outside of the system, getting it published in the newspapers so it can now look bad to the public, so the public outcry can come and you say, public, side with me. So the public outcry can come and help you and get this guy knocked off the case. Now we got to start over with a new chief who has to kind of look at it, or a new lead investigator who has to look at it and say, okay, now bring me up to speed. Let's get up to speed. We got to, and I think they already had somebody that was ready to go, but still, it's like, now we got a new lead. That new lead might go that new, lead detective could go a different direction and say, we want to do this. Linda Arndt was pulled off the case. This guy was pulled off the case. And so it's just like, it's really weird that people are being pulled off and moved and shifted. And you were a part of that. You were a part of getting somebody moved and shifted because you didn't like them. You didn't think that they should be. You never really told us what it was that they were doing. I would like to know, maybe it's a legitimate reason, what they were doing that made you say, this dude needs to be gone. that would push you beyond, what's ethical, to get the newspapers to out him in the newspapers, to get other people to look around and say, this, yeah, maybe you do need to get him off, instead of being able to have a real conversation, a one-on-one conversation. That's weird.
Served. I think they get some little nominal amount of money under the glare of microphones and lights every time they walked into the courthouse.
Where I think you're going.
And there has not been a peep from one of these jurors since that grand jury finished. These people need special praise and special recognition. Now, they got a letter from the court thanking them for their service. I think that there were a few editorials shortly afterwards. But the fact that they have honored the court's admonition, the court's order, that this process was secret, the fact they have honored that, I think, is one of the extraordinary achievements of Boulder County. I don't know of other, think of the Rocky Flats grand jury, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's wrong that they did that, because they were doing that against the court order. But I must say,
Blah, 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 blah. Childish. It's childish. Childish use of language. Childish choice of words. Very childish choice of words right there. It's not, look, you have enough in an official capacity, because this sounds like you're gossiping. You know what I mean? It sounds like you're just gossiping. And why would a DA be gossiping in an official capacity? Blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? That means that, to me, that might give me pause. That might lead me to believe that you're doing something that's just like, I might have to side-eye you for. I might have to side-eye you. Because you might be doing something and I might have to be like, what are you doing over there? I'm not sure what you're doing. I don't want to assume that you're doing anything wrong, but I don't know what you're doing. So I'm going to let you explain it to me. When you use language like that, when you do things like that, knowing the importance of this case, you guys got to be on your A's and your P's and Q's. You guys got to be on the top of your game. And you're blaming the police department for all the mistakes. But look at what you're doing. Look at the information that you're putting out.
That it's, and I've said often to people, these citizens, 12 plus 2 alternates, need to be recognized for not selling their story, not taking what might have been their personal views one way or another, and disseminating those, either because they were motivated just to do it or encouraged by neighbors. They have followed the instructions of the court, and I respect them tremendously for it.
Which is what you did. Like you let your personal views on the case bias you, right, into putting information out on other people and getting them kicked off the case so that the case could go in the direction that you wanted to do it. And I understand that, man. I get it. And if anybody's worked in an official capacity, sometimes people are just annoying. So that's not lost on me. Sometimes people are annoying and they stop the progress on something. It's like, dude, shut up. You know what I mean? Like, get off. All right, we're done. We're not getting anywhere. You know what I mean? I'm going to my supervisor. That's it. We got to get you off. But sometimes it's the case to where you go to your supervisor and you're like, look, I cannot work with this person. You have to pull me off this team. You have to pull me off this team, or you have to pull them off this team. And we can't work together. And sometimes it's the case that the supervisor is like, look, there's nothing I can do. I can't move you. I understand they're hard to deal with, but look, can you make it work for me? And sometimes you make it work until you get done and you're like, all right, I'm never working on another case with them again. And sometimes you become the best of friends and you say, man, look, initially I didn't understand their style, but at the end of the day, they're pretty cool people. I am playing this because I wrote down a few notes of what he said, and I want to contrast it with this. Again, got Cotton Star posting, the Alex Hunter speaks to the media after the grand jury departs.
The Boulder grand jury has completed its work and will not return. No charges have been filed. The grand jurors have done their work extraordinarily well, bringing to bear all of their legal powers, life experiences, and shrewdness. Yet I must report to you that I and my prosecution task force believe we do not have sufficient evidence to warrant the filing of charges against anyone who has been investigated at this time. Under Colorado law, the proceedings of the grand jury are secret. Under no circumstances will I or any of my advisors, prosecutors, the law enforcement officers working on this case, or the grand jurors discuss grand jury proceedings today or ever, unless ordered by the court. However, that might help in you and in the public understanding all of the events of today. I want to thank you for attending this.
That was a bunch of nothingness. That was nothing. That was nothing. You didn't tell anyone anything. You know that this is one of the biggest cases, or the biggest case to come out of Boulder, Colorado, one of the biggest cases in the world at this point. And you come out and you say, I have nothing. You come out and you say, I have nothing for you. Not only do I have nothing for you, but don't ask me nothing. Don't ask me nothing. Don't ask the people I work with nothing. Don't ask the people that conducted this investigation nothing. Don't ask for leaks. Don't ask for any documents. If you want us to talk about this at all, it's going to have to be a court order to unseal it. Now, do I believe that that was a strategic move to do something like, let's get this tied up in court? Let's get this tied up in a court order. If they want to see it, if anybody wants to see it, let's get this tied up in a court order and push from there, because people wanted to see it, but the whole legal system and having to get lawyers and get attorneys, get drafts up and, get into the right hands of the right people, get the right judge, get the right favorable view, and get the right evidence to say that this belongs to the public. You know what I mean? He did his best to lock everybody down and say nobody can talk about anything, and that's part of. And I have to say thank you again to gentleman MB Inc. Gentleman by the name of Matt sent me some information on a report by, and I haven't read through it all, but on a report. It's not a report. It's a case. I don't want to call it a summary, but it's a case file or a court file that kind of talks about Linda Hoffman Pugh is trying to essentially sue Mary Keenan. I assume Mary Keenan was Mary Lacey before getting married. I don't know. That's my assumption. Could be wrong. I'm not hanging my hat on that. But that's my assumption. But anyways, she's trying to sue Mary Keenan because essentially what she's saying is that, hey, I should be able to talk about this case freely prior to what I told about information prior to what was said to the grand jury is essentially what I should be having. Prior to anything that I talked about with the grand jury. So I should be free to kind of talk about whatever I want to talk about. As long as it's not information that I release to them. And, she's not the only one because Fleet and Priscilla White were like, hey, can we release this stuff so we can talk? So we can get on with our lives? So we can tell our side of the story? Things that were, just kind of locked up that people would like to know that are locked up. Maybe things that Burke said. And I'll finish the rest of my thoughts when he gets done.
Speedily called press conference tomorrow at 12:30 at an area that I think conference all of the events of today. I want to thank you for attending this speedily called press conference tomorrow at 12:30 at an area that I think is either built or under construction or will be built tomorrow. I will have my team members present. I will have the DAs that have been my advisors from February of 1997, including Bill Ritter, that is coming with special assistance since he just finished surgery a few days ago. At that time, I plan to take your questions. Thank you very much.
So, you remember how he said, look, this grand jury had all the power. They had all the rights. They could subpoena anyone. They could subpoena anybody. They could talk to anybody. They could investigate anything. They could go anywhere and look at anything that they wanted to do. They could use the full measure of the law. And essentially, they did that. They did that. And in using the full measure of the law, they said, convict Patsy and John of, and I do wonder, anyways, they said convict Patsy and John of this sort of child neglect, of not doing things themselves, but committing it into the hands of someone who did. Let's do that. And I wonder if by chance or by way, they got wind of some information because they started, signing over guardianship rights and all such as that. I think John was saying they were preparing, to be arrested and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden they weren't. And they probably were doing that just because somebody was like, hey, just in case things go left, let's be prepared for the worst. And it actually turned out for the best. But they said, Alex Hunter said, these guys had the full power, the full measure, and they returned with the indictment. But Alex Hunter said, I and my prosecution task force didn't want to do it. What about the evidence they collected wasn't enough? And then you said, don't ask me nothing about it. If you want to talk about it, get the courts to unseal it. What about what they found wasn't good enough to at least indict the Ramseys on child neglect? Nothing? If they could call anybody they want to That's almost like you're saying nothing that they looked at was useful enough. Nothing? Well, it would seem to me, based on the way his attitude is, it would seem to me that it's possible that they found something that was pretty sufficient, pretty hard hitting, and maybe something circumstantial, but something that makes you sit back and go, there's more there. But I would think that there would have been something more of, we reviewed all the evidence. We looked at everything that the grand jury put forth. And at this time, neither the grand jury nor my team, we can't come to any conclusion that anybody needs to be charged. But he made specific note to say that I and my team won't do it. And that is really weird. Because years later, you get Michael Caine, who was a part of this team, who he specifically hired to deal with the grand jury. You get Michael Caine saying years later, I can't rule out the parents. I can't. Well, Mike, the way your boy is talking, sounds like he had it all together. Sounds like you could pretty much rule him out. The way your homegirl was talking, D.A. Keenan, D.A. Lacey, they act like, hey man, it's done deal. But you come back, Michael Keenan, after the DNA has been revealed. You come back and you say, I don't know if I can rule the parents out. I got to think about that for a second. Hold on. Michael Caine, I'm sorry. But he comes back and he says, I don't know if I can rule the parents out. And he said that on an interview with Dan Abrams, who in 2016 was very pointed at the CBS documentary in saying that this theory that Burke did this to JonBenet is, well, total BS. And I noticed that in his interview in, I think, 2024 with Michael Caine, he was very specific to point it to the parents. When they first started off, he said, what makes you say that you can't rule out the parents? And, it almost seems like Dan is trying to swing it. You know what I mean? Like, you got to stop. You got to stop trying to swing it. Quit. It almost seems like he's trying to swing it by saying, okay, what makes you think it's not the parents? And Michael Caine comes back and says, well, I think with the state of the evidence, we can't rule anybody out. And then he comes back and reinforces, okay, why is it about the parents again? I said, I don't think you can rule anyone out. And you came back and reinforced the parents because you don't want to believe that anybody else, even a child, can do this. You got to stop trying to force things. You really do. Just let it go where it's going to go. Sometimes you got to do. There's this concept that that is in finance that I heard in one of my finance classes. They were talking about the random walk hypothesis, where the market's just kind of gonna do its thing. It's gonna weave and do all this stuff. You invest it and it's just gonna do its thing. Just let it do its thing. It's gonna randomly walk up and there's a whole model for it. It's complicated. I guess what you really sit down and look at the model and seek to understand the model, it's not super complicated, but if you step away from the model for a while, then it's like, where are all those numbers and symbols? But it's just like, I think of it as this investigation as a random walk. Just let it go. Let it wander where it's going to wander so that it can fall on who it needs to fall on. Right? And wherever it leads to, you can say, okay, we can lock it down. If nobody else was in the house, let's lock it down. If you said that, you know, you locked the house, let's lock it down. If you said that the doors were locked, let's lock it down. If you say that, you know, somebody had a key to the house, let's call the people who had a key to the house. I mean, that's a done deal, and let's lock it down. If that's the case, hey man, let's get phone records, let's get everything. But there shouldn't be all this mumbo jumbo about, oh, I don't know if there's a high-tech shoe or something like that. I don't know if there's this. I don't know if there's that. All this nonsense. We shouldn't be getting this stonewalling because, you know, I was talking to this gentleman, or I responded to this gentleman in my comments. He was upset with me, and he commented like 3 times. He was upset with me. He called my analysis disgusting. He called my analysis disgusting, and he said, I can't remember. I have to paraphrase, but he said something to the effect of, you're an armchair, you're a Monday junkyard armchair detective, a Monday junkyard. Why does it have to be Monday? You know what I mean? Like, why specifically Monday? What's going on Monday? Monday is the beginning of the week. Why can't it be a Tuesday? Like, are detectives worse? Is that the joke? Detectives are worse on Monday than they are on any other day of the week? Do they start off like slow on Mondays and get better on Friday, or they get better on Wednesday, or they're, you know, at full throttle on Sunday and then they shut it down and, you know, Monday is just a new week? I don't understand that. But he was mad at me because, you know, he was like, oh, disgusting. And from what I perceived and what he was saying was, because, you know, I won't say a lot of people accuse me of this, but I know that some people accuse me of it, and they say that I need to do my research. And then they start talking about what I need to research. And then I'll respond and say, we've looked at that already. We've looked at that, and we've looked at quite a few other things. So why don't you tell me what exactly it is that I'm missing? Because it seems like you are missing quite a lot that we've reviewed. It seems like you have a very surface level understanding of the DNA, of the facts of the case. And look, I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that to say that everybody has to start somewhere. You got to start looking at this case from somewhere, from some angle. You know what I mean? I'm still looking at this case. I'm fairly brand new to this case. I mean, everybody has to start somewhere. But if you're going to say that, like, have some legitimate response that's going to make me believe in something other than the direction that I'm going. You know what I mean? Like, it can't just be this stuff that's thrown out there, because I think a lot of times, you know, that's what people think that I'm doing. If I was doing that, I could throw up videos every single day. And I mean, every single day. I could take this investigation. I mean, wherever the wind blows me, there's so many theories and Reddit posts out there, and web sleuths, and, you know, web toolbox, and all of that stuff. There's so many theories out there. You know, well, did you think about this? Did you think about this? Did you think about the mole on the person's left leg? And did you think about how that mole is bigger in size in the picture in 1996 than it was in the picture in 1994? I'm not saying that happened, but like, that's the kind of stuff that people get into you. Did you think about that? You know, if that's the case, then, you know, what do you think this means? What happened between 1994 and 1996? And you're like, oh my God, now I got to figure out why moles get bigger in 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, of course, like you would be going down that rabbit hole. But I want to stick to what's closest, because some of those other things have not been substantiated by several sources, is why I don't dive into a lot of things. And even if they've been substantiated in some other way, they have not been linked to this case in a way that I can see. So instead of assuming and creating a story off of something that I cannot see or I do not see happening, then I can't touch. Like, say, for example, with the I've wanted for this entire time, I've wanted to go back into this theory of the island trips and some tie being in with the, John's father, and the North Fox Island. And that's why I said in the video when I did it, I was like, yo, this seems just like a bunch of conspiracy theory. And this is probably going to be my last time talking about it, because there was no tie back, Like, I want to go into that stuff, but like, I don't see a tie back. Like, somebody mentioned that in one of their books, they talked about Beaver Island, and they did, like, I think in The Death of Innocence, but they said, I think that the Reddit poster said that, John mentioned it with respect to taking JonBenet there, and he said it was in the books. And I was like, okay, I got the books. Let's go look at the books. But when you go look at the books, that's not, what was said. In fact, John didn't say it at all. It's in The Death of Innocence. Like, it was Patsy saying, I don't even know why she brought it up. It's mentioned like twice that I saw, but she brought up Beaver Island. She said, kids going, across the ferry to Beaver Island. And that's all she said about it. She didn't say John takes JonBenet there, or she didn't say anything about that I saw. I could have missed it, but I didn't see anything about Beaver Island the rest of the way. So I'm just saying, you got to make a leap there. And that's not a leap I'm ready to take at this point. Even if we talk about inappropriate activity from adults in relation to minors in the entire city, it's possible. Even JonBenet being part of that, it's possible. But I also have questions on that. If that were the case, who would they be fronting for? You see what I'm saying? Like, my thing is, if the whole town was in on it, if it's a who's who, like, why would it be happening in a church that's allowing it? What would be the problem with somebody in that church telling on someone else with the story? It's like, oh, this person had been doing it and they found it, but they found him doing it, but they didn't arrest him because he was going to blackmail everybody else. If I know you can blackmail me, why would it even be a big issue? Why would it be a problem? Why would anybody know about it? If I know you got dirt on me and I got dirt on you, it's never going to come up. We're never going to bring it up. But what would be the point of us having dirt on one another and then me going to the cops and be like, hey, this guy has dirt on him? Knowing that you can very, very clearly bring, and then because I want to keep you quiet, I'm having to pay out amounts of, okay, here's some hush money and we're all going to be quiet. We could have just stayed quiet in the first place and no one had to get paid. No one had to get involved. The cops didn't have to get involved. And even if the cops got involved, then the cops are dirty themselves. Nothing would have been said. This would have gone away. This would not have been national news, because this happened in Boulder, Colorado, in some unknown CEO's place, right? We didn't know John Ramsey. I mean, he got some shout outs in Lockheed Martin but this, or in the newspaper because he was an entrepreneur of the year, but this could have stayed, in Boulder, Colorado, this could have stayed directly in Boulder, Colorado, and we wouldn't have known anything about it. It's like, oh, that poor little girl, that could have been on a local news. Done. But why did it reach the level of national and international? If we could have just kept it quiet at this level, and we would have had motivation to, because everybody was doing it. And if everybody's in on it, nobody's got a motivation to talk about it. So, and if John and Patsy are in on that, they wouldn't talk about that. So until I get a tie-in, I can't talk about that. So anyways, my point in saying that was, we got to let the investigation go where it's going to go. And that's how I'm working. That's the reason I'm doing the things that I'm doing. That's the reason I'm going the way that I'm going, is because I'm just trying to let the investigation work the way it's working. So that's the video. Appreciate you for watching. I appreciate your support. Appreciate your love. And that's it. So again, like, share, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. You know, what are your thoughts? And until next time, take it easy.